Hello again, Nancy Bowser here, reading chapter 14 from Jesus Said, When the Coffee's Gone, the driver's seat. One thing I struggle with is choosing to operate in faith by surrendering to God, as opposed to operating in fear and trying to control everything. So God gave me kind of a crazy dream, but it got his point across. In the dream, Jim told me that I needed to take a large motorhome to a certain destination. I don't know if it was ours or not, but I was compliant and got in. The motorhome began driving down the road while I was reading and writing, quite content with no worries. I was aware that the road was winding and steep at times, but was unconcerned until I realized that I was sitting in the passenger seat and no one was in the driver's seat. Then I panicked and hurried over into the driver's seat, thinking I had to steer so we wouldn't crash. I wondered how we had gotten that far without incident and how it had stayed on the road as if it was being invisibly steered. In the dream, the size of the vehicle and type of road were significant to me because I'm fearful of riding in huge vehicles and of mountain roads. I grabbed the steering wheel and tried to see out the windshield, but it was quite difficult and frustrating, for there was a picture of a man with long hair and a kind face embedded in the window. I could see about 2 inches on either side of the man, which allowed me to see the edge of the road, but not the middle. I was steering without being able to see where I was going or what was up ahead. I kept looking from one side of the man's head to the other to try to judge where the road was, and often I would veer slightly onto the dirt shoulder as the road turned and I hadn't seen it coming. I wondered how it had previously done so well without me at the wheel. Is that pride or what? And I couldn't figure out why that aggravating picture of the man was in my way, hindering me from doing my job. When I woke up, it was obvious that the man was Jesus and that he had been the one driving. It had not been my job to drive or to control. I started out well by obediently getting into the vehicle, but I was supposed to stay in the passenger seat, having faith that the one who was in control belonged in that position, even though I couldn't see him where I thought he should be. The moment I got into the driver's seat and saw the man, I should have recognized him as Jesus. I should have realized that I couldn't see the road, that Jesus could, and then I should have moved back over into the passenger seat, surrendering and relinquishing control. I've been thinking a lot about faith. It is the opposite of fear. And often when we're fearful, we try to take control, as I did in the dream, and we don't recognize that the reason things are not going so well is because we can't see clearly and we're not supposed to be in control, just obedient. An amazing thing about the Lord is that he wants to be in control and he does everything perfectly. Yet, when we decide to take control, he lets us. He knows that in our pride we'll mess everything up, for we cannot see the whole road like he can. And still, he lets us try until we realize that we can't do it on our own and allow him to take over again. His patience is astounding. It's a hard lesson to learn that when God asks us to do something, we don't have to make it happen. That's his job. We just need to have our confidence properly placed in him through faith, surrender our right to rule and control, be obedient, and then he does amazing things. You know, I don't even think that God cares so much about where we end up as much as he cares about how we get there. In my dream, I never reached a destination. It was more about who was doing the driving. The following is how I see the progression of our responses when we choose to either act in fear or in faith. Fear leads to pride, which is love of self, which leads to rebellion, which leads to disobedience, which leads to curses or negative consequences. On the other hand, faith leads to humility, which is love for God, which leads to surrender, which leads to obedience, which leads to blessings. Hebrews 11:1 and 12:1b through 2a says, "Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. Look to Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith."